In every generation, there is one person who addresses the heavy issue.
Wait, hold on. Nobody said anything about heavy lifting.
Someone who does the in-depth and investigative reporting that other journalists are afraid to touch.
So am I gonna need gloves? Am I getting gloves?
A show that will ask the hard questions.
Referendums. Sounds like something I need a prescription for.
This is not that show. The Not So Late Show with Glenn Sherman.
A burnt body discovered behind a church hours after an 18-year-old man was murdered. The F&M and DNA slammed the Christie administration over the VAT delay. What's happening at this JFK property? Plus, your musical talents could earn you up to $20,000. We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. I'm Bonnie Toot, and NB12 starts now. Topping news tonight, less than 24 hours after an 18-year-old man was shot dead, police discovered a man's burnt body wrapped in a sheet behind a church. Jasmine Bonamy was at the scene this morning and filed this report.
For the second time this month, police have found the body of yet another murder victim near a church. But this time they say that body was found in burning bushes. The discovery was made just behind Refuge Tabernacle. It attracted not only police but also scores of curious and shocked area residents and church officials. Administrator for the church, Sylvian Roll Johnson, who was visibly shaken, said something like this happening behind a church is telling about what is happening in our country today.
It's only leave for it now to go into the church, because if you can put a human remains in the back, maybe if you could have gotten in the church, the door was open, you would have put it in the church. It's astonishing. I'm lost for words. We need prayers.
CDU Chief Superintendent Paul Roll told reporters at the scene that police got a call around 10 and proceeded to Refuge Court off Cowpen Road. That's when they discovered the badly burnt body of a man wrapped in a sheet.
Where they found a body wrapped in a sheet and burnt. The body is burnt beyond recognition, and it appears to be that of a male. And so we are not certain as to how this individual came by his death. Obviously, with the level of the burning in this, we may have to proceed by DNA to try and determine an identification of this individual.
Roll said the body was so badly burned that it was hard to immediately determine how the victim died, but he added that police believe the body had been there for at least 12 hours. Area resident Gwendolyn Major says she's been living in the area for 25 years and feels like a prisoner in her own home thanks to the rise in crime. The 87-year-old says it was she who called police after an employee who she says went to urinate in nearby bushes spotted the body. That's when she says she called her grandson, who was an officer.
And going in the back, he saw the body. He asked if I see any fire. I told him, no, I didn't see no fire. Then I called my grandson. He on the force, and I called him and he came up, and he went investigated. So I couldn't tell you nothing, because I stay right in the house. The people so wicked, I have no say on porch now.
How do you feel with such a discovery being made so close to your home?
It really don't feel good, because I don't sit on porch no more. I tell you the truth, if the children, even grandchildren, even on the porch, I be calling them inside. The people got to, like prison, I can tell you the truth. Because every day you're hearing something. Every Jesus Day, man. In my time, I never known about this.
So did you see anything suspicious?
No, I tell you, I was at the house, I've seen nothing.
Meantime, church officials say the fear of crime has caused them to cut down on their evening services. Roll Johnson says if that worker had not discovered the body today, it was likely church officials would have made the discovery on Wednesday when they were set to have the midweek service.
The reason why we have not been having night service is because of fear of what has really been happening.
Member for the area, Cleola Hamilton, was also on scene. She expressed concern about the level of crime on the island.
Has been riddled with a number of unfortunate incidents in crime. But crime is basically all over Nassau. So it appears as if people are not talking anymore. You know, they just respond. It appears as if we have very angry people in the country.
Police are asking for anyone with a missing family member or information on this case to contact them at 911, 919, or 502-9991. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
Meantime, a teenager who graduated high school just a few months ago lost his life after a gunman's bullet struck him in the head as he and a group of friends scrambled for cover on Constitution Drive last night. Police say the 18-year-old, identified by family members as former C.C. Sweeting High School student Braven Hannah, was sitting on a bench outside a friend's home playing dominoes with a group of people when a masked man emerged from the rear of the building and opened fire on them around 8:50 p.m. Head of the Central Detective Unit, Superintendent Paul Rowe, said the shooter, who police said took an aim at Braven, left the scene on foot and disappeared somewhere in the darkness along nearby Eaton Street. By the time police arrived, Braven was dead on the ground.
What we know is that the victim was sitting on the bench on the outside of the residence of his friend, playing dominoes, when a lone male emerged from the rear of the building, wearing a tar mask over his face, produced a handgun, walk up to the group, and discharged shots in the direction of the victim, fatally wounding him.
Police appealed to the public for information about last night's killing, a familiar plea as the toll of violent death has been rising rapidly in the past few weeks. On the scene last night, Superintendent Stephen Dean, who heads the National Crime Prevention Office, said police are taking the spate of killings seriously and yesterday started putting more manpower on the streets of neighborhoods that have seen increased bloodshed lately.
There will be pinpointing where these homicides have been frequent, to increase patrols in those areas, police presence in those areas, our intelligence based on the grounds in those areas. So over the next couple of days, it might be uncomfortable for some persons in those communities. We want to talk to parents and mothers that please talk to your sons in those areas, because if they're involved in crime, we'll be targeting them and they will be arrested.
As $25,000 reward is being offered to anyone with information which may lead to the arrest and conviction of suspects in this month's murder of Edgar George Dart. The 56-year-old British man was killed in a home invasion on Grand Bahama. Dart, who lived in Canada, and members of his family were bound and robbed by 3 armed bandits. Dart, who was reportedly visiting his mother, was shot after he got into an altercation with one of the intruders. Police say anyone with information are asked to call them at 352-1919 or 351-9111. A decision in the contempt hearing of lawyer Jeffrey Farquharson has been postponed for the second time this week. Supreme Court Judge Bernard Turner was expected to make a ruling today in the contempt of court action. However, due to an ongoing attempted murder trial that was handed over to the jury this afternoon, Turner set a new date for Farquharson's ruling to sometime next week. Farquharson and Justice Turner had many heated exchanges during the trial of convicted child killer Kofi Goodman, which lasted from April to August 2013. On one occasion in July, Farquharson claimed that the Bahamian people needed to know the, quote, foolishness the judge was doing. Turner cited Farquharson for contempt. The Supreme Court justice did not act immediately in the interest of justice to Goodman. Goodman has been sentenced to death for the murder of 11-year-old Marco Archer. He is appealing his conviction and sentence. Government officials have confirmed that VAT implementation will be delayed. The government's announcement comes after months of confusion and uncertainty over the proposed tax. Noting government's failure to meet past deadlines, leaders from the Free National Movement and Democratic National Alliance say this latest delay comes as no surprise. Dana Smith reports.
Deputy Leader of the Free National Movement, Loretta Butler Turner, noted the delay is just the latest in a string of delays by the government. She also criticized the Christie administration for creating hysteria and having no clear plan of action.
I didn't see the feasibility of the government being able to implement that during the new fiscal period, even though that was the time frame which they said they wanted to move forward with it during the last budget communication. I'm not surprised because It appears to me that this government truly has missed deadlines on everything that it has self-imposed on itself, and any external deadlines as well. So it clearly indicates that it is a government that lacks focus.
Butler Turner pointed to the delays to the constitutional referendum and the gaming bill as examples of the government's lack of focus. And yesterday, State Finance Minister Michael Halkitis confirmed the government will delay VAT implementation from its previously proposed July 1st start date. His comments came after New Zealand VAT experts noted it would be extremely challenging for the government to meet its proposed start date. The experts also encouraged the government to get educational programs underway as soon as possible.
I think one of the big mistakes that the Christie-led government has done is not being fully aware of what was the best practice in implementing that, and what was the best manner in which to implement it.
Butler Turner explained VAT worked in New Zealand in part because the government there had a clear plan of what they were going to do and how it should be done, while this government's plan has been changing since the outset, and it seems the important issues have not been thought out. She said last year's announcement of a 15% rate turned many in the private sector off and ultimately helped to create widespread uncertainty and, quote, hysteria. Butler Turner explained the Christie administration should have had things in order, such as exemptions, before making any announcements. However, Butler Turner added a delay might not be a bad thing. She said it will give the government another chance to get it right.
You cannot educate on something that, does not have clear delineation. Certainly, if I know that I'm going to be taxed on the services to get this pair of glasses at 3%, or if I go into the food store, I'm going to be taxed for the goods and services there at 3%, I can start educating the people about what they can expect.
Also criticizing the government, DNA leader Granville McCartney said delays are typical of the Christie administration. He also said the New Zealand VAT experts have said nothing new, and the government only had to listen to the local business community to realize that a July 1st date was unrealistic.
We had a delayed referendum, or whatever they call that foolishness they had the other day. They certainly probably going to delay the Constitutional Commission suggestions and the referendum on gender equality. They seem to have forgotten about the Marco Archer laws. They have forgotten about the sexual offenses registry. They seem to have forgotten that they are the government of this country.
McCartney said a VAT delay was inevitable as the government has not introduced final VAT legislation, nor has it helmed a focused and widespread education campaign. And speaking on the New Zealand consultants, McCartney said they only confirmed the long-standing position of the DNA and many in the private sector.
Now we see that there's going to be a delay based on foreigners coming to our country and telling our government the same thing our local businesses and professionals in this country said over and repeatedly. But no, they would not listen to the business persons who make this economy run.
McCartney said he thanks the New Zealand VAT experts for what they have said, but the government only needs to, quote, check the record to see it's all been said before. In addition to a delay, the New Zealand consultants also recommended the government introduce VAT at a rate of 7 or 10%, according to Halkitis. Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.
Government has awarded a contract to Holiday Industrial Builders International Limited to construct a new $20 million building for the Ministry of National Security on John F. Kennedy Drive. The contractor is Lloyd Smith. Minister of Labor and National Insurance Shane Gibson says it went to tender late last year to ensure transparency. But that's not the only multi-million-dollar building government is constructing in that area as the Christie administration carries out what he calls an aggressive building program.
We're now looking at relocating government offices for two main reasons. Number one, to put them in better accommodations, and number two, to save the government money.
The building, which is being constructed by the National Insurance Board, will be next to the new office of the Attorney General, which is west of the Ministry of Works on John F. Kennedy Drive. It will be a replica of the AG's office, which was plagued with challenges.
We made some minor changes because there were some concerns about some concerns about some of the design of that building, and so we modified it a bit, and now the replica building is being built right next to that. That's going to house the Ministry of National Security and also the administrative staff for the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
The Ministry of National Security is currently located in the Churchill Building on Bay Street. Gibson could not give the value of the contract, but said the building will cost around $20 million and take under 2 years to construct. He says 3 or 4 companies put in bids when the contract went out to tender late last year.
All of our government buildings, the requirement is to go to National Insurance, you go through the tender process, and then you also have the Ministry of Works validate the information before the projects are actually approved.
The Minister of Labor and National Insurance says Holiday Industrial, which was awarded the new contract, is the same company that initially began work on the building now housing the AG and her staff. He previously said the Ingram administration invested millions of dollars to renovate the building, but added that a review of the renovations detailed a number of abuses related to that project. Last year, he said additional renovations to the building would cost up to $500,000.
I'm going to be tabling during my budget presentation the actual cost to complete that building, which will shock you when you look at the amount of money that was spent in that building versus, I don't remember the exact figure, but it's much higher than whatever the contract price is now. You know, but I don't want to guess. I'll table those figures in Parliament. But I suffice it to say that had they let Holiday Industrial complete the contract, they could have saved millions of dollars.
In addition to that project, Gibson says government will also construct a new building which will house the Ministry of Agriculture and Immigration Department.
Before the previous administration left office, they approved a 100,000 square foot government complex being built on what people know to be the St. John's playing field, which is actually owned by the National Insurance Board. And so in addition to that building, we also have architectural drawings being completed for a 100,000 square foot building that's going to be built on the former St. John's playing field, which was always owned by National Insurance from back in the late 80s.
When MB12 returns, find out how much the country stands to make from Bahamas Carnival. Plus, the tourism minister hopes the gaming bill will be passed by July. So stay with us.